Yeah, welcome from my side. I'm really happy to be here. It's my first trip to, what was the town again? Kolding, yeah? I've been several times in Denmark, but never in this beautiful town here. Yeah, my name is Felix. I'm in broadcast now for 30 years, plus minus, depends on when you tell yourself when did it actually start to be in broadcast. I'm a tonmeister. I studied in Detmold, so I actually wanted to become a music producer as well. I wanted to do recordings with Herbert von Karajan. Unfortunately, he died. Therefore, I had to find something else, which was broadcast. I worked for 4.5 years in a truck company, in an OB-van company in Cologne. At this time, one of the biggest companies with the biggest trucks in Europe, actually, definitely in Germany, but I'm pretty sure in Europe as well. A company called Wiege. Nobody knows this company anymore. We did a lot of Formula One. We did a lot of German motorsport. DTM is big in Germany, but also football or soccer. I hope you understand football as well in Denmark. And I was happy to introduce or to commission the first digital mixing console in their biggest truck at this time. And then I was more or less bond to this truck for 2 years, which was a big Labo desk, an MC Square 82 based on switching technology from IBM and ATMs, which were very old times. Then Labo hooked me out of this company. I was for 14 years product manager for the MC Square series and for a couple of other products in Labo. And then I quit with Labo because I became a call in Germany from the University of Applied Science in Darmstadt to teach the next generation for broadcast production and system design. That's my official title there in Dieburg. I always kept my fingers at the desk, even during the 14 times with Labo. I mixed the World Cup in 2006 and in stereo, and from then on in surround until 2018. And in 2018, we started to do this, all the matches remotely. You will see this later on in Immersive, in 3D. I did a lot of boxing, Klitschko fights, and all this kind of stuff. Sometimes also some music stuff in broadcast, but sports is actually where the money sits in TV broadcast. The next 60 minutes, I'm talking about, first of all, about immersion by itself. What do we actually expect from immersion? What do we actually think immersion is? What does it mean that we are immersed? And if you just in general think about this, what does it mean to be immersed? You might perhaps think about, I'm encompassed by water when I dive into the water, or when you go through a rainy day somewhere. And then you are immersed by all the water which is around you. Yeah, this is somehow, of course, touching you. Immersion also means you have a wonderful walk in the forest on a Sunday afternoon. And you are immersed by the birds, by the little leaves which are falling down, by the little, I don't know what this is actually in English, the este, the crackling of your footsteps, and all these little sounds which are going on, the smell of the forest. That's immersion too. But also immersion could mean that you are part of a big party, of a rock and roll concert. The sound pressure level is immersing you. It could be mono. Yeah, the smell is immersing you. Dancing together with your friends is immersing you. All these different things which you perceive during these different scenarios are immersing you. If you're looking into how Wikipedia actually defines immersion, you find this immersion for films as the complete immersion with haptic involvement. Very interesting. The push of any physical or geometrical boundaries. And that's interesting because the first part we can't do in audio. The second part we might be able to do. And I would claim that we always try to push the boundaries, whether we do a film, whether we do sports broadcasts, whether we do the video part of it, whether we do the audio part of it. We always try, whether we do gaming as well. I mean, this is, of course, super real. It's typically not a real environment where you game in, even that we think we are in a real environment. What does immersion mean to be in a football stadium as a fan in Dortmund, very famous, the big stand on the left-hand side, 20,000 people on a standing tribune. They're not sitting there, they're standing, 20,000 guys. In a football stadium, and we talk today a lot about football, how we cover football. In a football stadium, immersion means you are immersed, of course, by the sound pressure level. And it's not the sound pressure level of the PA, which is, for us in broadcast, quite often very annoying. It's the sound pressure level of the complete arena, of all the fans cheering, shouting, clapping, whatever they do. This is a sound pressure level which can be beyond 100 dBSPL, super loud. I think the loudest stadium we had in Germany, they are not anymore in the Bundesliga, is Gelsenkirchen. Huge stadium, very closed. And you can see that the closed stadiums and more the football stadiums are kind of closed arenas. Of course, the architecture. I have been in St. Petersburg, beautiful stadium. Yeah, strange politics right now, but beautiful stadium. Big stadium. It's so big, it takes you half an hour to walk around the stadium. And of course, this is immersing you. All the stadiums I have seen in Qatar with the containers and different architecture is immersing you. The scenery, once you have been at a football match, especially with the international match, and they play the anthem, the Portuguese anthem, the English anthem, very exciting when all the English people are singing their anthem. I get goosebumps when I'm in the stadium. I'm immersed, I'm fully immersed. Once I have goosebumps, I think I am immersed. And of course, it's the fans next to you. It's the fans you're cheering together with your teams. It's the sausage, the famous curry sausage, yeah, the Stadionwurst we say in Germany. It's perhaps the smell you have left and right. It's you feel people left and right. That's all immersion. How do we think immersion applies to audio? And if we look back a little bit, we might think, yes, surround, of course, is immersion. It's immersing us already, and we are playing with this in TV broadcast now for almost 20 years. Stereo, the word stereo, is not coming from two speakers. The word stereo is coming from spatial. And spatial means this is already immersion. You are placed in a room with stereo sound. We actually could use stereo sound for all kind of immersive audio. And then for some others, it's total with a pristine sound, with all the instruments, and people are immersed. Beautiful. For me, this one is immersing me as well. It's an old mono recording from the 50s, last century, Dino Lipatti, one of perhaps the most sensitive piano players we had, playing this beautiful Chopin piece. I learned to listen to him when I was a kid on a vinyl plate. The only thing which I'm missing here is the crackling of the vinyl plate, which even would immerse me more. Exactly. So even the mono sound can immerse you. It's just a question of how much are you touched by what is going on? How much are you psychologically, how emotionally, how you are immersed? How does this translate to football, to soccer? Immersion in football, and I can't speak about the audio only because it's always a product with video and with audio. Immersion means that we try to cover the match with plus 20, plus 30 on a high level with the Euro Cups and the World Cups. It's plus 40 cameras, where the director tries to tell you a story that you are in front of your TV at home, are fully immersed, that you are fully involved in what is going on with this match. They try with all the details that try to get, player observation cameras going into the tunnel, which you can't do when you are in the stadium. The last Euro Cup, we even have been for a couple of seconds in the locker rooms of the players. It's all details where the director tries to tell you a story which is exciting, which is immersing you, and you don't go away from the television and watch whatever is series on Netflix. But of course, the audio comes along with the video. I know there's a lot of pubs where soccer is just played on the screen and we hear some music, yeah. But this is not the audience I'm talking about. They are immersed by themselves, by the music, by their beer, by whatever. They're cheering and they're clapping. But I'm talking about the standard consumer at home in front of their TV. And of course, audio is coming along with it. And now we run a little bit through the history, how we developed the last, how many years? Already 16 years, 18 years, how we developed immersive sound for football. It started already in 2006, the German World Cup, with all the matches fully produced in 5.1. This year, I have been in Berlin and in Leipzig in the truck mixing the stereo together with a colleague of mine. Two English guys were mixing in Munich, centralized in the IBC, all matches in 5.1. I took over in 2008 for the Euro Cup in Austria and in Switzerland, and we added spot mics to the sound. Why did we do this? As I explained, I'm a classical tone master, and I try to follow the approach of recording actually a choir. And if you do a choir recording, you have your main AB. Nowadays, perhaps whatever, a cube in 3D. And of course, you have to add spot microphones. Why do we add the spot microphones? Because the AB typically is very weak in localization. All your singers jump left and right. So we add these spot microphones for good localization. We add these spot microphones for good frequency response. And we had the possibility with these spot microphones to exaggerate the surrounding in the 5.1. If we go back this slide, this would be the normal perception of the audience left and right, always coming from the perspective that we put the audience at the best seat in the house, which is, we call it camera 1 position. It's the press tribune. It's in the center of the stadium, typically quite close to the sideline. So you have 50% of the stadium on the left-hand side, 50% of the stadium on the right-hand side, which means the stadium is in front of you. Only very little is behind you. So the left stand, the German fans and the English fans, are more or less like 45, 30 degrees in front of you, like this picture shows here. This can be quite boring if you place them there. And somehow they glue together in the front, which means it's very difficult to differentiate. Are they on the left-hand side? Are they in the center? Or are they on the right-hand side? And because of not enough decorrelation, you have a very small sweet spot for them to perceive in a room like this one, that this is the left stand and this is the right stand. Therefore, we exaggerate this and pan them around completely discrete, fans on the left-hand side, fans left and fans right on the right-hand side. These spot microphones in Switzerland and in Austria were even hanging down from the roof. Pretty much the same what we perhaps would do with a choir, yeah? Not from the bottom, more from the top side. Was a beautiful sound. Just a bit too expensive to rig 8, 10 in the US, 16 stadiums with that many microphones. So the clapping and the cheering was done. This problem was solved, and the ideal position is actually really in front of my choir.
But isn't that just an expanded AB you establish on top of another one?
It's not really an AB. It's really a spot microphone with the advantages and the disadvantages of an AB. It's too close to play by itself. Yeah, it doesn't have the same. How would you describe this? The same glue what an AB is giving you, but it gives you the nice localization. You could call it, because it's an ORTF, I could have used also whatever very narrow AB, but we are big fans of cardioids with this stuff because you want to hide whatever is coming from the rears in these microphones. Good. Clapping left and right, this problem was solved. Then the next challenge was, how can we enhance this to 3D in football coverage? With UHD, it was quite natural that we also added 3D audio, and this began already in 2013. Yeah, that were the first trials in Belo Horizonte in Brazil, preparing the World Cup in Brazil to add 3D audio. Actually, the first approach was to use an ambisonics microphone, first order for this. With all the disadvantages a first order microphone has, very weak localization, yeah, and all the aliases you have in ambisonics. Therefore, we skipped this and simply enhanced the IIT cross, which is the basis for our main sound. Actually, the IIT cross, you will see this later on in a picture, is hanging down from the roof. It's not a real IIT cross. It's done with supercarded microphones, and it's called ORTF surround. Just for mounting purposes, makes it more compact, etc., etc. We simply added 2 microphones below of it, turned this around. The main ORTF surround was kept for the main layer, and 2 ORTFs, that is the original rig which I used there in 2013, was used for the height information. A new microphone was actually invented. Shops then built for 2014 this rig here, still with the perception that we need spacing between the main layer and the height layer. This microphone was used for the final for the main stadium in Brazil, and the final was post-mix actually in the Dolby facilities in Wood & Bassett at this time for demo purposes. This is the position of this microphone. That's the main microphone. This is a spare microphone, still a sound field, and this was our beautiful new invented rig for covering 3D audio. I still have to say it was actually a test with this microphone, but we began to add kind of noise to the height speakers. Thanks to Jungkook Lee's investigation, shops could reduce the spacing for this microphone, and finally the ORTF 3D was invented with 8 capsules in one rig. And these microphones are pointing with 90 degrees up, and this is a standard supercarded microphone which is pointing same like the IIT cross or the ORTF surround down to the main pitch. In 2018, all stadiums in Russia were equipped with this microphone as main microphone, and the mixing process is actually quite easy. We place all these 8 capsules discreetly in all the 8 speakers. No divergence between any of the speakers. Yeah. The second huge advantage we had for 2018 was the introduction of a software developed by Lavo. I played a little role in this, but was not my product at this time. But we introduced Kick for the World Cups. If you think about how football, how sports actually in general is put together, you always have a coverage for the crowd, you have coverage for all cameras, and you have coverage for the so-called field of play. Whatever is going on the field, you would like to listen to this. You would like to hear the ball kicked, you would like to hear the players shouting at each other or giving commands. You would like to hear the referees whistle. You would like to hear the coin toss before the match. All this stuff we call field of play. And this is chased throughout a complete match with whatever, 12, 14, 16 in Bundesliga, 70 microphones. There's one guy sitting and chasing all these microphones. Why do we have to chase them? We cannot leave them all open because the biggest amount of these microphones, what they are capturing is noise. It's the spill of the audience coming to these microphones. And if you would open all these 40 microphones, of course, we have a very high level of noise, which is reducing the immersion of the beautiful surround microphones we put in place before. So therefore, you have to change this and ideally only have 2 microphones open at the same time. Yeah, for the crossfade from one microphone to another or for a specific scenario. And even the biggest mixer in the world wouldn't be able to find exactly minus 3 dB if both microphones are open, and he never would find whatever -1 plus -6 dB to have a power equal output of this field of play group, which means it always results in kind of waved output. So the crowd spill in this field of play group would go up and down and up and down, depending on how concentrated you are with your fingers. This software is chasing the ball automatically, getting the data, the information data from the tracking, which is used for tracking of players, how much the players were running, how much they were tackling, etc., etc. And we just used this in parallel because they also know the information about where the football is, and they know, of course, how many people are in one area. Job done. This software is controlling the faders, and of course, mathematics are in this respect quite easy. It always can calculate the right power summation, the right output, even if 3 microphones are up, and it's super reliable throughout whatever 90 minutes compared to human beings. This didn't just help to always catch the right ball kick. It especially helped that to add ball kicks into the sound was much easier for us because of the power summation, which I explained before. And as described here, a perfectly level mix is of course much easier to listen as an object by itself. And in 2018, we started to mix object-based. You will see later on what we did with this object. This is coming already here. Object-based for us meant from the beginning in 2018, we do not just want to create a beautiful, whatever, 3D mix for the main TV coverage. We also wanted to play with the objects we have, the objects we created, to present a second presentation. And we called this second presentation the pub presentation. As explained before already, we always have different viewership. We have people sitting at home following the football coverage. We have a lot of people in a pub, but for World Cups, for Euro Cups, for international matches, we also have big public viewing areas. Quite often with a much bigger viewership than in a stadium. I still remember in 2006 in Berlin, there were something like 500,000 people watching on screens the football coverage. What does it mean? Even if you are in a pub with whatever 200 people, these 200 people are your audience. You don't need anymore the audience coming from the stadium to immerse you. You are already immersed by the pub. So you don't need anymore the fact that the crowd is immersing you, but you would like to follow what is going on the pitch. And of course, people want to follow commentary. Therefore, we only added a few microphones for the fan left zone and for the fan right zone. A huge amount of ball kicks, cameras, PA for the anthems, for the announcements, and of course, commentary on top, or even without commentary. Some pubs don't like commentary with football coverage. Yeah. New presentation was introduced. And this could finally actually end up in a presentation where you would have your home fans on the left speaker and the away fans on the right speaker. In Manchester, there is even a pub which is split in 2 parts. One room is for United and the other room is for City. So the pub owner could actually place one speaker with the object fans left in the one room and the other object.
What are you doing to the commentary track? Is that a single track or is it hand or anyone?
These are 6 objects. In broadcast, we are able to transport 16 channels for Dolby Atmos. 10 channels are the bed. It's a 1.4 bed. And 6 objects are available to play around. Typically, it's the commentator, one object, or it's 2 objects if you have English commentator and whatever German commentator, French commentator. One object, exactly. And that's actually the beauty of object-based mixing, because you can derive out of one mix multiple languages. The Swiss guys are doing this a lot. Plus,
Is that based
in the center, in the Phantom Center. Yeah, in the Phantom Center. Actually, this presentation from us was designed to be a stereo mix for the pub. Yeah, commentary in the center, left fan, right fan, ball kicks, cameras, PA on top, as well as whatever slow-mos, whatever would happen. But because it's an object, people could do whatever they wanted to do with this. They could even upmix this to a surround or mix it down into a mono mix. So the first event in immersive audio was done, but we thought there's still something missing. We still have to add something to have a bigger experience. And then we had the idea in 2019, we need spot mics also with discrete height information. It's not enough that we just get this discrete height information from the ORTF 3D. We also need spot mics with height information to get very closely more into the height channels. Idea was developed. I started a little research project at the university. In the beginning, we did this with, that's the test setup. That's a setup which we did in Stuttgart in the stadium with the normal ORTF plus a figure of 8. From the thinking, from the idea behind, we might have to reduce the vertical width in the post-production to find out how much vertical information we actually would need. It turned out we want to have a complete discrete information for the main layer and for the height layer, which from the beginning was actually quite obvious, but we had the flexibility to adapt this. It was a bit complicated to decode it. I don't know if you ever saw a MS decoder which does this vertically. I haven't seen it, so it was a bit complicated Reaper session. And for the test we did in debug as well, a quite complicated Labo session. But it turned out to be super impressive. Was super impressive for HBS during the World Cup, and in the end also for the DFL in Germany to produce the German football with us as well. In the end, it turned out to be actually a split of the ORTF 3D, and Schöps labeled it ORTF 2+2 because you have the both layers, same principle, supercardioid pointing towards the main layer, and another supercardioid which has the main direction polar pattern coming from here for the height channel. And this is the setup how we use this in St. Petersburg here. And if you followed, I can play this again. It's actually not placed right behind the pitch simply because there's behind the goal simply because there's not enough space. Yeah. Let's go into the microphone plane, how we typically put this all together. It's something like 16 pitch microphones, sometimes 17, sometimes only 14, depends on how much we are allowed to put on the pitch. And these microphones are all the microphones which you see here around the pitch in the corner, 2 behind the goal, 5 of them on the far side, and they are all chased by kick. Then there's something like 40 camera microphones. Why is it 40? There's a lot of handheld camera mics, and all these cameras have, for these huge events, they have MS microphones, stereo microphones for a long time now on their cameras. And it's the 20 crowd microphones. Once this microphone was developed, we placed this microphone again hanging down from the roof. Quite often very complicated to find the right position because there's a lot of PA speakers sitting there. Then one spot microphone in an ideal world, and this works in Berlin in the Olympia Stadium, works quite well because there's a huge runway behind the goal and in front of the crowd. There's enough space between the microphone and the audience. Left side, right side, as well as the front side. And in an ideal world, whenever you have a Laola wave, the Laola wave is going around your surround setup or 3D setup at home. Why are we not putting the microphone always behind the goal? It's very simple. Quite often football fans are coming with drums, or in South Africa they came with vuvuzelas, with trumpets, or whatever. A new thing they do a lot is hitting with whatever, some metallic stuff, or with their plastic bottles, the fencing, which is not such a nice sound, but especially the drums, they kill everything actually in our sound. And the closer you are, the more distracting this is. Therefore, we try to get the right distance to the fan zone. And the easiest is just to put actually the microphone on the opposite side. This is the usual position, and face from here into the left stand and into the right stand. Actually, this fan area is not so important for us. It's usually families with their kids. They're not cheering that much. This is the area where the fans are, who are more, let's say, louder, where they are sitting. So it's the same compromise I'm doing for choir. Find the right balance between being too close, and being too far away, somewhere in between. More or less the same mic setup was used this year for the Euros. You see the same microphones pop up. And this resulted in the end in an immersion where we thought, and a friend of mine, I mentioned him already, Jungkook told me, and he was listening to, I think the World Cup's already in Qatar and the Euro Cup in 2021. I was sending him in a discreet little trick, a discreet mix from my control room. And he was saying, I'm sitting here with my kids watching your football on whatever, ITV, BBC in the UK. And it's so big, it's so huge. Kids are sitting next to me left and right, and I have whatever, 50-inch screen. It's too big. Your audio is too big. That was the first time, and we were always looking for how can we compete with the big screens? How can we compete with the very exciting story directors can tell with all their cameras? Well, there were 100 times slow lenses. They can zoom in and zoom out, and helicopters and all this kind of stuff. It's a huge scenery, actually, if you follow this. And we have big screens at home. And then he replied, your audio now is too big, which in the beginning I said, great. Yeah, it's good that we have now the balance that we can play with. But at the same time, that was also an alarm sign. We shouldn't be bigger. The cue, the impression, how you trigger your senses, they shouldn't be differ with whatever you get from the audio side and from the video side. It should somehow be combined. It should be the same stadium. It shouldn't be a bigger or smaller stadium. And in the past, we always had a smaller stadium. And I can say this is one of the best reasons to figure out how you have to balance your audio the right way to do this remotely from a remote control room and not in a truck with a lot of compromises. That's the control room we were using in Qatar. It always looks very similar with a 5.1.4 setup with a desk in the center, a big screen in the front, couple of PCs, Macs on the left-hand side, some routing control, and mixing out of 2 control rooms, all 64 matches. I'm doing this pretty much the same in Darmstadt for Bundesliga with even bigger speakers, because this studio is also designed to do some music mixing live, which we did already twice this year. And the advantage is, once you have this setup in a remote control room, the mix from one stadium to another doesn't change that much. Of course, you keep your parameters with compression, with EQ, with balancing the faders, and you have the same pair of ears. Or you have a colleague with whom you discussed, we want to achieve the sound for such an event this way or that way. And lastly, we have to follow a lot of different mixes. We have to monitor. We are actually the QC at the same time for the Euros, for the World Cups, for the Bundesliga, whatever is going out, which is, of course, in object-based mixing. In presentations, it's the raw 514, it's the raw 5.1, it's the raw stereo. It's actually still the mono sound, plus with commentary, plus now with a public viewing presentation. And in Russia, we even had to mix 8 so-called multimedia mixes, which went out only for tablet and for computer feeds in the world. And this you only can do if you are not distracted by comms and by whatever fans and the noise, doors going, is opening and closing all the time in a TV truck. So job was done. We had our beautiful remote control rooms. We had our presentations done, but we still thought they're still missing something. We still have to get closer to the game. So we asked ourselves, what could be next? Come on. Ah, it's already here. What could be next? And one of the biggest problems we have in live, it's a bit like live recording of a huge stage in music where the musicians are very close. The worst which could happen is you have a rock and roll band with a huge drum kit plus some strings or some whatever wood instruments. Yeah, you would have the drums all over the place. And our noisy drums is actually the fans. They are all over the place. Yeah, whenever they get loud, they are in every microphone because we are live, because the commentators are live. And the commentary microphone is actually the microphone which is disturbing us the most. Even if we have a beautiful, we call it international sound, multi-channel international sound, however you name it, the international sound which is without commentary. Even if this is beautifully done and you have to add commentary on top of it, it's destroying this mix because of all the spill which is coming into this microphone. AI is now in place. And we have since whatever, 2.5 years, some beautiful plugins which can reduce this spill. They can isolate speech from a very noisy environment. Waves Clarity, Supertone Clear, Cedar has one, and there's actually a fourth one, which I can't remember the name of. So we started in Bundesliga already to cleaning the commentary sound with AI. Some people are using it. It's still not mandatory. Might be that whatever, the next month we have a mandatory request from Sky that all commentators for the Sky program have to be cleaned with artificial intelligence with one of these plugins. And if you haven't heard this, we have the chance later on in Reaper to listen to this. So we saw the results with very little artifacts of these plugins. The older plugins to reduce whatever noise from speech always had huge artifacts. And then we thought, actually a friend of mine, Stefan Ebert, why not using this also for close ball? And if you look into the close ball waveform, the stems, the audio, video, and close ball, you see that there's a lot of noise. Yeah, that's actually the commentators here. That's commentators speaking, and that's why they are not speaking. There's not such a huge difference. So you see how big the amount of the spill is. That's the commentator without spill, just the commentator by itself speaking, and that's the same microphone with the spill coming through it. And depending on how people play, how people mix the commentary sound, many of our colleagues are adding a lot of compression. This ratio between com and noise, com and spill, is even smaller. So we introduced also these plugins into our stems, and the result was very, very interesting. Now we switch to the Reaper session.
What is the level of the commentary compared to the rest?
The level compared to the rest, you mean in terms of balancing to the international sound? This depends on your taste. This depends on actually also how a network, how a station like ARD, ZDF, Sky, BBC would like to have this. Yes, there is a difference. There's also a difference in. I actually have. I would show this later as well. I have developed with actually a student of mine designed this in Reaper, a plugin which is measuring the commentary to international sound ratio. And we had a bachelor thesis before this with some experiments with listeners, and they could adjust the level between international sound and commentary by themselves. And we found out, first of all, the younger you are, the more crowd sound, the more international sound you would like to have. The more you are a sports fan, the more international sound you want to have. Yeah. Sometimes even some of the test guys, they adjusted this level to 0, which means equal level for speech and for international sound. Very interesting. And I said, whenever there's a goal, I give a shit on the commentary. I want to be in the stadium. There was one guy beyond 60, and he was a PA guy, so he had quite an experience with his ears, and he had a ratio of plus 15 dB, which is a lot, which actually means you can mute the international sound. The second interesting thing is the more decorrelated the sound is, the closer this ratio, the smaller this ratio can be. Yeah, the less, and it's quite obvious, the less is going on in the phantom center or in the real center, the more you can understand your commentary. It's again something always. I mean, it's like in music mixing, you always try to go in an area. Not everybody's doing this, but this would be the right approach to go in an area where the football sound is not with your speech. Some people try to boost the voice of the commentary, same like with commercials. Yeah, they boost whatever 100 hertz a lot, but my close ball is already there. It is in this area. So this is not actually the best idea to do this. Now we start first. A lot of talk. We start first with listening to how football could sound like with the closing ceremony of the Euro Cup this year in Berlin.
How they've got here, I'm not quite sure. On occasion, really, they haven't been at their fluent best, but what they have shown is character and resilience, and they have individual players that can find a moment out of nowhere. We've seen it. Bellingham overhead kick, Saka, equaliser for Switzerland, Solly Watkins off the bench to get England here. So for me, although Spain have been much the better team, more consistent, it's a 50-50 game. Well, for a few minutes now, we offer you the closing ceremony, which the centrepiece will be a live performance of the official tournament song, Fire, by the Italian group Medusa, the American pop rock band One Republic, and German singer-songwriter Leone. Enjoy!
Video is coming, don't worry. Whenever I open this, it's again going very much to the front and to mono, which I had to do for the English team because they were singing very loud. Even Gareth Southgate was like a singing microphone. So it's all these different things we try to catch. And so on and so on and so on. And then the match starts.
10,
Excuse me?
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. So, Spain again, or England at last. Here's where we find out. England in white, launched by Pickford.
And they can hear this left and right thing.
Really fascinating to see how the opening 15 minutes will go. Here's the reference. I'm sure he will want his team just to continue what they have been doing, because they have been quality and brilliant, as England have shown character and resilience in 10 or 15 minutes. May tell us, or give us one or two clues tactically how they're going to go about this occasion. Barbahel returns at right fullback for Spain. Morata, who launched their tournament with their very first goal against Croatia in this round.
So here you could hear already beautifully the fans on the left-hand side, wherever you are sitting. I think everybody could perceive the left on the left side and the other fans should be the Spanish guys. They have been on the right-hand side. Because of this complete decorrelation, the microphones, both of them, have a distance of whatever, something like 80 meters minimum. That was in Berlin. So there were even more. It was plus 100 meter, 110 meters is the pitch size. So the microphones had the distance of completely decorrelated. Very easy. The same like in film where you have whatever, the helicopter is coming just from one speaker and is flying through this room. Everybody in this room can perceive that the helicopter is flying from here to whatever, the back right. That's the same principle. But now I also want to capture, of course, the ball kicks. And you could hear this already. There was one ball kick quite nicely to hear. But still, and clarity in the beginning was already in place, there's a lot of noise coming in this group. But on the other side, I have to push it all the time. We wanna hear what is going on. I mean, if I go to this situation here, even without clarity, ball kick is anyway beautifully there. But very seldom we have the microphone that close to the ball kick. Now I first demonstrate what it makes with the commentators if they have, and for the commentators we were using Supertone Clear, if they have their plugin in place or not. Let's just listen to the commentary sound, and right now they are already cleaned.
Played it in.
And this one is already off.
Competing for it, and Spain are going to get another corner.
This is actually quite little because I'm very cautious with compression. If I would do this like I see this quite often, if I would reduce my threshold, increase, of course, the makeup gain, you can right away perceive that the spill is coming up. And now the commentator spill ratio, of course, is much weaker. As soon as I switch them on,
not retrospectively, but
it's more or less gone.
Rather,
especially for the second commentator, the guide commentator was a little bit weaker in terms of his voice, in terms of the sound pressure, which arrived to his speech. It might be little what you hear now, but together with the mix, it enables me to push them a lot more. I keep the immersion much better once this is reduced. Here they are coming. And I can promise you we have much weaker commentators than these two professional English guys. The same we do now with the ball kicks. And we are using Clarity VX Pro because you have different bands to reduce the spill. The typical sound of a ball kick off the ball hit itself is a bit like a bass drum, just a bit higher in terms of the bass tune, which is around 120 hertz, not at 60 hertz. But also you want to push the kick itself. Of course, you also want to get the voices, but anyway, the plugin is opening for the voices. It detects human speech, also human crying right away. Now we switch this on. That's the spill we have. Here we go. Spill is not gone, but spill is much better, and we have this clear sound of players. It's players, it's not fans. Whatever, giving their commands. And in the final mix, if I want to push this, and we have perhaps this very little sound here.
Williams, now from the other side.
I call it tip kick because they are just kicking around like this. We can hear all these kicks. Once again. I hear the voice.
Now from the other side.
Still have immersion. There's no microphone. Microphone was more left and right. I don't know which microphone was open. Switching off AI.
Rodri.
And right away you hear everything is collapsing to the center.
Let's turn to T. Shaw. Yamal.
On top of this, we add a transient designer to boost, same like with the kick drum, the low frequencies a little bit, the high frequencies. And with this speaker setup, I had to reduce it during the rehearsal because it was already a bit too much. But in broadcast, in TV broadcast, it actually never can be too much because at home people are speaking at the same time. They're lower down. It's quite high volume because David requested higher volume. At home, you perhaps have a beer and you drink. In the pub, the same. Therefore, we try to accelerate this a lot simply because we still want to have the ball kicks going on when you hear this sound in a different environment.
Williams.
So they played, and suddenly, don't look at the markers, they are in the wrong order.
The tempo. Carvajal for Lamal. Lamine Yamal. And Williams scores!
That's the reaction I want to have. The shouting of Lamal, cheering.
Goal for Spain!
Beautiful.
Straight on the front foot, spoke about more tempo, more urgency. That's what this is all about. A lovely little flick inside from Carvajal, sits Lamine Yamal away. I'm not really sure if he's trying to pick out Danny Olmo.
So we saw all the elements. We saw the ball kick itself. We saw how we use the ball kick microphones also for reactions, players' reactions, which is super important that people at home get how much they celebrate their goal. We could hear the PA, and this is what we do. We play the PA even during the match. Not perhaps that loud, but we push it, same like with an entertainment show. And you could hear, and this is the beauty of 3D, we could hear the announcer announcing 1-0 for England and commentator still in place. I know this ratio was a bit too aggressive. I like it quite aggressively. But this you can adjust, and we are able now to measure this with this plugin here. We are able now to get an objective impression of where should it actually sit, which is measuring on the left-hand side the commentary group and on the right-hand side just in 5.1, but it's still the same, more or less, a downmix of the 3D international sound.
Is to up the tempo.
And let's have a look what it tells us. It shows us the ratio is in a positive value right now. It's in green. It's interesting that even with -5, I still can understand it, but I'm quite close to the speaker. In a real broadcast, I would adapt this a little bit. Yeah, international sound would have been a little bit too high, but you perceive that even that we had a negative value, because they are crying, they are shouting into the microphone, it is still possible to understand this. In 3D, this is much easier if there's twice speech coming from the PA announcement and the commentator, because we can separate this with our ears with the famous cocktail party effect. And coming back to things we had to do as well, we always have to keep an eye on the downmix parameters for our stuff, because we have consumers taking the surround but having a stereo setup at home. So we always have to keep an eye on the stereo downmix. Therefore, I've followed this approach already for 15, 16 years, mixing actually in stereo derived from the 5.1. And the same we did for the 5.1.4, and actually the 5.1 mix is the main 5.1 mix which is going out, and the stereo mix is the main stereo mix which is going out week by week for Bundesliga and during the World Cups and the Euros as well. And because we are in Qatar and in Russia, I was still using these downmix parameters, equally weighted all channels actually, because I have whatever PA in the height and I want to understand this. That was my understanding of it. That was the approach. And I have discrete crowd signal, which I easily can collapse down to 5.1 and even to stereo. We changed this, and the objects were typically mixed just with this is the 5.1 to stereo down mix, traditional -3, and the rears in sports quite often done with -4.5 only. This we changed to -6 dBs actually for two reasons. First reason is that a lot of Dolby devices at home can't do, all of them actually, they can't do in live, they can't do an attenuation of 3 dB in the front. They can't attenuate all of them with the same level. You only can do a trim, and then you can do a surround trim. And secondly, it's actually it plays in our concept how we put it together, because the height channels, including the PA, is reduced by 6 dB. And once you come to one level, you don't have anymore the cocktail party effect where you can differentiate between the PA speech and the commentator speech. So it's much, much easier at home to understand both, or just to concentrate on the commentator with the -6 dB. And it was also an agreement between the US, the UK and Germany, because now we are all using the same down mix parameters, which makes live for us in Dolby Atmos production for live much, much easier, if not around the world, but at least already 3 major countries using Dolby Atmos have the same parameters.
Did you put anything specific in the LFE? I can see you commented in the stereo version.
No, it's cut in the stereo version, because at home it's also cut in the stereo version. We played with the LFE a little bit in the past, but we are not doing this anymore, and it's not anymore necessary in Dolby Atmos actually. In surround it was sometimes quite nice to put a gate and a low pass on the close ball feed, and whenever they hit the ball, it enhanced a little bit. It gave us a bit more immersion in the 5.1, but we kept the close ball full range for the stereo left and right. Yeah. But nowadays, because Atmos is so big, and I can play another sample, we don't need this anymore. We don't have to enhance this. As I said, we have been already too big. We don't need the low frequency effect for more immersion. Yeah, so all channels were equally weighted. That doesn't apply anymore. So they are different weighted, which means once we have perhaps a music piece which would be played out in Dolby Atmos, we have to find different balancing for this as well. But this is perhaps something for the future. This is how the public viewing presentation is going out. Of course, we mix it, that this mix with these settings works in stereo for a pub presentation, whether they use the English guide or their own guide. That's actually a quite nice thing, how we can derive several mixes out of the same actually product. That's it from my side. I only can say that immersion, of course, is the combination of 3D audio. Could also be surround audio. The surround is not that far away from the 3D audio. Stereo, of course, is much, much weaker. It's fast in live broadcasts, essential to get perfect objects. Otherwise, we couldn't play with objects. It's essential to clean more and more the objects, to handcraft. I was saying we have to handcraft the objects, because they are revealed a lot more in 3D audio. That was already the case in surround. Yeah, if you have the ball kicks in the front and on the left and right side, the audience, of course, everybody can follow what is going wrong here, whether there's distortion or bumps, etc., etc. Therefore, these objects have to be manipulated with a lot more, let's say, perfection. And AI plays now a role. It has to be consistent, but still, we need this variety with whatever PAs coming from the high channels, players are shouting into the microphones, commentators are cheering together with the game, left stand, right stand, whatever is going on. And sometimes even it can collapse down to mono. Sometimes matches, and this match also was for a while quite boring. Yeah, they were more or less equal, and then the crowd stops doing something. I'm not chasing the crowd whenever they get boring. Then I just concentrate on actually the mono stuff we are getting, the field of play and whatever is going on. The more people are attracted when it's going wide, when they shoot a goal, and the audience goes crazy. It's this yin and yang concept, right? Yeah. If you listen for a while to a mono or a stereo sound, you are much more immersed when you change this to 3D audio. Yeah, thank you very much. Further questions?
Do you see any improvements now that stadiums probably use beamforming? Because like for the PAs and stuff, then is that noticeable? Also, like
Because the PA is beamforming, because they're using beamforming, no, it's actually it's a contradiction there because they have this strong weapons in the stadium, and it's how can I explain this? If you go in a football stadium like in Qatar or in Russia, the PA guys are typically not the pristine PA mixers. Yeah, they are very proud to have such a weapon in their fingers, and they play with this weapon. And we are always fighting with the PA guys. And the better the PA system is, they more try it out. It's they are not our friends. They are kind of our enemies, and it's very difficult for them to provide a stereo mix from their music post fade, but without compression, without EQ. It's the basic stuff which you learn in the first and the second semester is super difficult internationally. I can speak for all international PA guys, and I don't want to blame PA people. Yeah? There's super cool guys there, but for these events, it's always a fight to get good audio and not too loud audio. You can imagine how much PA we have in the commentators' microphones from the PA. And unfortunately, this is speech, and then waves collapses. Then the microphone is open. And nowadays, they are even playing in Dortmund, they are playing our sound back through their speaker set. Actually, this is quite funny, because when I'm sitting in Darmstadt, we're doing the Dolby Atmos stuff in Germany, we are doing remotely from Darmstadt, from a control room. You saw this control room, which is really cool because it sounds nice and it's a very nice environment. And I have a good coffee machine there and a good toilet, so it's not like in a stadium. But because they are playing our sound out, and it's my sound, I'm mixing actually in Darmstadt, and because the mix is done on site, I'm just remote controlling the DSP processing, which is in the stadium, so there's no huge round trip time. I can open my ball kick fader, which is very close to a line array, and I'm producing feedback. And they don't know where this is coming from. I can actually play with them. I can make a little game. And this is funny because I'm not sitting in the stadium, I'm somewhere else. But you see, they want to somehow enhance that the fans are even more excited. We know this from boxing. In boxing, we always put the referee's mic on the speakers coming from the ceiling, which is quite nice in boxing. If you're in the arena and you can follow what the referee is telling Mike Tyson and the other guy, it's interesting. Sure, go ahead.
Is it like a political thing? Like the Bayern fans want to be louder than the Dortmund fans, and do you have to think about that as well?
It is political. I didn't know this until this year, March, April. I can't remember. It is a political thing, indeed, and it's not from Sky, or it's not from DAZN or from DFL, whomever. It's from the teams. We had a complaint that, I think it was in Dortmund, that the away team was louder than the Dortmund fans. Luckily, it was not our mix, which was done from Darmstadt. It was, again, the commentator's microphone. Yeah, commentator sitting in the arena, and they have been closer to, can't remember, Freiburg or whatever. And think about, there's 20,000 people in the Dortmund stadium shouting. Of course, they are much louder than the 5,000 Freiburg guys, but because the commentator was closer and was heavily compressed, not by me, at home on Sky in stereo, it was perceived for Dortmund. Yeah, the Dortmund guys complained that was louder. They are too loud. That can't be right. And no, it's not right. It was not us. It was them. We usually actually keep this equal. Yeah, the gain is exactly the same. It's 20 dB gain left, 20 dB gain right. We just try to balance that in the OITF, really from the center. The stand is perceived from the center in the stereo. If you would pan this to left and right in the front, and then we pan it around to the right and to the left speakers. But it's more or less equal. We try to get this two choirs the same. And if the Dortmund guys are louder, yeah, The weighting of my complete stereo image is a bit like this. Sometimes for half an hour. If they're not doing anything, we have this quite often in Munich, yeah, that the Munich fans are not doing anything. And perhaps Dortmund is doing a lot in Munich. Yeah, then it is like this. I leave it like this because you would perceive the same in the stadium. You still have an anchor point with ball kicks, commentary, whatever is going on. You wouldn't say these guys are doing a bad job because it's bad, it's wrong balance, it's all on the left or right hand side. You still would perceive it's actually nicely centered into the middle. No, we are not judging this.
How much is 3dB in Europe?
How much is 3dB?
I'm not going to cost the reality of 3dB.
To get the fire louder.
That never happened. But it's actually the first time that which was good. I mean, whenever people in broadcast, and we are very weak, in terms of how audio is perceived in broadcasts. The most important is the 40 cameras. The most important is whatever the beautiful slow-mo graphics, all this kind of stuff. Light is much more important than sound. In entertainment shows, light is more important than sound, even that we have perhaps a music entertainment show. Therefore, I was quite happy. They recognize what we are doing. Interesting. And they figured out the problem I'm chasing now for more than 10 years, that we have a problem with the commentators. We have to get this under control. Otherwise, we cannot sell the product to the end consumers. If there's always that much spill, we cannot sell it. We can double the amount of microphones in the stadium, it won't change. If the commentator microphone is dirty, we will have a dirty sound at home. And we have this quite often. We have quite often a very dirty sound at home. I have to admit, worldwide. That's a worldwide problem, actually. Just the latency is a problem. 70 milliseconds latency. Yeah, you need 4 frames in video. Not for commentary, but for close ball.
Were you at any time during the production monitoring the motor?
Not anymore. No, not anymore. But if I would teach, also I'm not anymore monitoring in stereo. Really, perhaps 2-3 minutes, 5 minutes per match. All the rest, actually, I enjoy my, same like you, I enjoy my 3D sound because I know how it applies to stereo. But I'm doing this now for 20 years, mixing in surround, and now for 10 years in 3D, and since 2018 regularly in 3D. But I always would recommend, whenever I would do a new sports, I would monitor whatever, minimum the first 20 minutes in stereo.
Do you sometimes feel you need some spot microphones on stuff that you cannot cover? I mean, normally what you could see in the image, especially if you have a close-up, we have to have it in the sound as well. But
of course.
And the corner kick, I heard that was like that.
Yeah.
But what happens in front of the goals is different.
Yeah, I know. This is a problem. This is a Schere, we would say. It's going apart, video and audio. We have this still quite often. This might also, I don't know if you ever heard about Salsa Sound, an AI company from the UK, and they add artificial ball kicks to their sound. Still, they can't mix this with the real sound properly. Yeah, of course, you need different distance, and it would be really ugly if we would have the artificial sound combined with the real sound, but with whatever 100 milliseconds delay. Blah, blah, blah. Sounds ugly. Yeah. Exactly, but this would be something which I would love, and I also would love to have array microphones to go deeper into the pitch. Yeah, step by step. Yes, they're still doing this. NFL is still using parabolic microphones. Yeah, very ugly sound actually, but you get what they're saying. Yeah.
One of the main problems in using football for many companies, they take it all from the ground. And I mean, when you have the audience on the side, it's very loud because that's what's there. If you take more from up and down, that would be better, like in American baseball, where you use shotguns,
Nice.
the shooting ones with the line array. It's a fierce microphones on top of the roof to cover what's going on the field, to get rid of some of the background sound or the audience
I didn't really get the question you asked.
No, I mean, it could be an idea to I just mentioned it is a problem that many get too much crowd noise in their productions because they keep all microphones down at the ground. And I like your getting your microphones up is also behind the goals and
but is this actually? I mean, the amount of crowd I can balance myself. This is always a question of how much immersion I want to have and how much close information I want to get out. This is, and I'm playing with this constantly. Actually, my crowd fader typically throughout a complete match sits at 0 dB. I never change this. It was perhaps a little bit too high in this mix here, but this is a rough post mix. But that was not the mix which went out. But then I'm playing always with the elements, with all the photo video, all the camera sounds and the ball kick sounds and whatever I have to add. Whether I push them a little bit more whenever the audience goes lazy, then I push more into this mono sound and I bring this down whatever by 5-10 dB to open the space for the crowd sound. Of course, we had this yesterday during dinner, we still have this problem that there's, from my point of view, not enough information in the height channels. It could sell even more. Even that we have PA here, we have discrete information of the crowd there. But if I would flip now to surround, the difference is not that huge, especially in a room like this one here, which gives you already, with the huge distance of the speakers, gives you already a good understanding of the immersion. We still would like to have more discrete information from the top channels. In the end, of course, I recognize the difference. Once I listen to a match for half an hour and I switch back to 5.1, it's very boring. But if you want to sell this to your production teams, and in the end we have to sell it to consumers, it should be understandable within a minute. People should right away figure out, this is Dolby Atmos, this is 3D sound, now I want to have this. And we are not at this point. This is much easier in music where you can put discrete information there and everybody gets it right away. There's a couple of ideas flying around, and it doesn't help to put more microphones in the stadium. It's not a question of more microphones. You would have just a little more, let's say, white noise coming from the height. It needs more information like slow-mo whooshes, like referees' microphones, like whatever coaches. Why not putting the coaches in the rears, the coach bench? From my perspective, they are behind me. I sometimes play with this a little bit. Super risky because whenever there's some offensive language, or they will shoot the microphone. Yeah, they did already. But there's a lot more information in sports, which we know from hockey. Hockey, you can place a lot more microphones. Boxing, referee is mic'd, the coach is mic'd. And you can play with this stuff much, much easier than in football. Football, in this respect, to sell it actually through TV is super conservative. Yep, you have to break. Yep, thank you very much. Good. Yep.